Hey guys, as always, thanks for tuning in. So I want to show you how to wire up Pixelcade Pulse devices. So we got a lot of stuff here, various Pixelcade Pulse devices. We've got our LED speaker grills here. We've got an 8x8 effects matrix. We've got an 8x32 effects matrix. We've got LED strips, which you can get off the shelf. Different kinds of LED strips. This one's I've been using this one. That's kind of nice because you don't actually see the LED circuitry like you do on this one. But whatever you decide to get with an LED strip. We also have our retro 7 segment display here. This is an option. We've got a mini LCD for metadata, and then another dot matrix for scrolling text and live scores and other stuff. So lots of stuff. It's actually pretty straightforward how to wire it up, but let me just show you real quick. So first thing you need is a Pixelcade version 2 board. Looks like this. Look for the blue connector. And actually, before I go there, let's first talk about power. So do you need external power like this, or a power brick, depending on how many devices, or can you get away with running everything off the board? And so the answer is, if you're running, like for example, let's say you're just running 2 LED speaker rings, right? These have 45 LEDs each, so that's 90 LEDs. Technically, if you go by the book, this board can power up to 3 amps. And so each LED takes up 60 milliamps. So if you do the math, the answer would be no, if you have everything on all white. Now, in the real world, you're not going to be running these at full power and all white all the time. So I would say, if you're not, again, running, I have to be conservative, but in general, if you have just 2 speaker grills and you dial down the brightness, you're not on full bright, you're not running white all the time, you can get away with just running these guys off the board, right? Which is the most simple solution. I'll show you that in a second. If, however, you want to run these guys, plus a couple LED strips, maybe an effect matrix, then definitely you're into this territory where you need an external power supply. So let's start with the simple case first. So when you order, you'll tell us how many LEDs you have, and then we'll ship you the appropriate cable. So let's say we want to go with the easier use case first. You're just running a couple speaker grills. So you'd get this cable, it's got 3 wires, versus getting this cable, which has 2 wires and then this common ground. And I'll explain what that is in a second. If you need both cables, let us know in the order notes, and we can add both if you really need them both. So let's start with a simple case. So basically you take your custom cable here, plug it into the blue board. It's notched, the blue connector. It only goes in one way, so you can't mess up. And then what you do is you get our extender cables. These we sell. You can get these on Amazon as well. They come in 3 different sizes, 0.5 meter, 1 meter, and 2 meters. So you just kind of measure, okay, how far from the board to my speaker installation. And so depending on your cabinet, that could be anywhere from 1 meter or 2 meters. So just simply take this, and this is a female connector, male connector, female, plug it in. These also only go in one way, so really simple. And then you want to take the other end, and you're basically just going to connect these all in serial. So this here, connect this guy, okay. And then this is on 1 speaker grill, so you've got some distance from this one to this one. Let's say 0.5 meter maybe works. And then just simply plug in that guy. Okay, so same thing here. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but these things all only plug in one way, so you can't mess up. And so I've got my 2 speaker grills. I only have 2 devices, so I can get away with powering them off the board. Just dial down the brightness so it's not at 100%, and you'll be okay. So that's the simple solution. Now, if you're like me and you want to run more, then basically you're going to need an external power supply like this one. I really like this one because, and there's lots of different power supplies like this out there. Most of them you see have some terminal connections on the bottom here, and then the live AC is actually exposed. So if like you touched it with your finger, you could technically get shocked. So I I would advise to stay away from those unless you really know what you're doing. This one is nice because there's no live AC exposed. It's just here, you know, traditional power switch, and then we have our terminals for 5 volts out. So with that one, you would not use the 3-wire cable, and you would use instead this one, which has 2 connected wires plus a 3rd wire for a common ground. And so same thing, go ahead and just pop that in there. And then just like before, you would connect that to your chain. So let's take, say, this one and pop that in there. And then, you know, I've got more devices in my chain now, right? So let's say I want to put in my LED strips next. It doesn't really matter what order you connect everything in, because in the software, you're going to, and see the separate tutorial on that, you're basically going to define each zone in the software. So when you're connecting the stuff, just remember this was connected first, this was second, the next one was third, and so on. And then you'll just finish it up in the software. So let's say we want to do our strips next. So let's go ahead and connect our strip. Now you notice on the strip that the strip has an additional 2 wires here. So this is what is, these are for basically to inject 5 volts into our overall chain. So because the board cannot supply enough juice, we basically need to take external power and inject it into our strip. And that's what these 2 wires are for. So I would simply then just take these 2 and make sure, you know, red is positive, black or white is going to be the ground. And so just make sure to get your colors right. And then simply, now I got fancy, I just wired on a little connector. And so actually what I did, I'll show you what I did. Let me just finish this. So let's go from the LED strips to the matrix. Okay, so I just simply wired on a little connector here so I could easily service it. And then I'm going to take the 5 volts out coming out of my power supply and just connect it here, right? But you know, you don't need to do that. You could literally just solder these together. You don't need to get fancy and have this connector. That's totally up to you and optional. But the point is, basically we've got 5 volts coming out of this power supply, which can run up to 60 amps, which is plenty enough to run all of our stuff. We've got that being injected via this connection right here. Now all these devices will be powered off that same 5 volts from this guy. So that's the only other thing you got to worry about is this common ground. So remember, back to the board, there's this extra wire hanging out here. This is what's called common ground. And in this setup, you have to connect this wire to the negative terminal on your external power supply. That's the common ground because we're getting power from 2 different sources. And it's very important you do that. If not, you'll have stability issues. Trust me, I've already tried it. And so you can just take a longer wire from your power supply here. I just wired up, you know, just a longer wire here, depending on how much you need to go from your power to your board. And then just simply splice these together. You can use electrical tape, you can solder, however you connect your wires, that's totally fine. And that's it, basically. So that's how you wire up the chain. And then in addition, if you've got our sub displays, these actually are much easier to wire. So let's start with the retro 7 segment. You know, these are really good for showing the year game or console came out, and if you're running the DOFLinks integration, you can show real-time scores. It's pretty cool. So basically, this is super easy. You just look at the board, look for where it says 7 segment, and then this is really easy, only goes in one way. Just snap it in. So that's it, easy peasy. That's a 7 segment. If you've got the mini LCD, this is typically good for like metadata, more metadata, what's the name of the game, when did it come out, what's the genre, who manufactured the game, 4 lines of data here. Then you'll just go here. This has 4 pins, and so there's a connector here called OLED. We'll change that to mini LCD at some point, and then just pop that in, and that's it. And then lastly, if you've got our dot matrix, this is good for scrolling text, real-time scores as well. Just a little bit bigger display than the retro 7 segment. You just go here, just look for the label that says dot matrix, pop it in. Same thing, only goes one way. So the additional displays are really easy to wire, and these all will get power off of the board. So if you're using all the additional displays, that is actually going to probably suck up most of the power. So you would definitely want to go with the external power supply, even if you were just running the 2 speaker LED rings, I would say. If you're only running the 2 speaker LED rings, you're not running all this other stuff, then again, you can get away with using this cable and running everything off the board power. So that's pretty much it. I know it's a lot of stuff, but hopefully that was helpful. And as always, appreciate the support, and just drop us any comments or questions.